Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, April 4th, and this week, the cost of deactivations, Cybercabs are coming, and all eyes on Uber. LegalRideshare breaks it down. Let me switch this real quick. Here we go. And from LegalRideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder and lead attorney, Brian Greening, and special guest, Jason Thierry, from the Gig Economy podcast. Gentlemen, happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed.
It's like, I look like I'm out of a bunker right now. I'm in Pennsylvania, not the usual studio. I have a little bit of a wacky setup here, but we're doing it. We're making it happen.
I know. I was going to say, Jared, blink twice if you're in trouble.
Yeah, right. It kind of looks like that, but I promise you guys, I'm safe. Yeah, I want to hop right into the stories today, and obviously, Jason, we have worked with you in the past. Actually, Brian, I believe you were on the Gig Economy podcast a few years ago, correct?
I was, yeah. It's a great time, great podcast with a ton of awesome information. We're really excited to have Jason here. Thank you for joining us and contributing to our ecosystem.
Yeah, for sure. I've followed you guys for a long time. I think you guys were on episode. I mean, it was a long time ago. It was like maybe in the first 50 episodes. We're at like 250 now. So
yeah.
OG here.
How time flies, right? I think I saw the email and it was like 2019. And it's like, hey, you guys are doing a podcast. We're doing a podcast. Let's make this work. And here
exactly.
we are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that being said, we're going to jump in to the stories today. The first one, which we seem to cover a lot, but it's important. Deactivations are taking a serious toll on drivers. Now, this is from the New York Times, and they reported, quote, Stephen earned about $900 a week delivering for Uber Eats and DoorDash. The flexible hours allowed him to tend to his 15-year-old daughter and two parents with disabilities. In November of 2023, he received an email from Uber notifying him that his account had been deactivated. It cited fraudulent activity, but did not elaborate. He immediately appealed. 3 months later, Uber sent Mr. McDougall an email stating that a review concluded that activity on his account was in fact fraudulent and did not reactivate his account. At that point, he had completed over 1,700 deliveries on the app over more than 3 years. Relying now on just DoorDash deliveries, his income dropped to $500 on a good week. So basically, the little existing research on deactivations, as we all know, is pretty common. There was a study done in 2023 that conducted a coalition of labor groups found that over 40% had been deactivated at some point. In another survey, more than 800 California drivers, 2/3 said they had faced deactivations. So, Jason, we talk about this a ton on This Week in Rideshare. I imagine you do as well. I will say this, deactivations are a major issue, but this is the first time I've actually seen any sort of data showing how big it really is. I don't know if you've seen this before.
No, I mean, I feel like it's a little skewed because it's the coalition of labor groups, which tends to, I don't know. That's another topic, but right. It seems like 40% is really high. I personally have never been deactivated. I think the biggest problem that we see is, and we tell these, our listeners all the time and people that are doing gig work, is just like, don't just do Uber or don't just do DoorDash. Make sure you have plenty of apps available because you never know when they are going to deactivate you. And that's one of the things too that's happening in like California and Colorado and stuff, the government getting involved, which I don't really like a lot, but I do like that they're offering a little bit more protection for deactivations and an answer, not just like, oh, sorry, we don't like you today. You did this, and like, okay, prove it.
Right, exactly. Brian, what are your thoughts on the percentage? I'm just curious. And have you seen this study? I don't know if you've seen this yet.
I haven't seen the study before this article came out, and the percentage does seem high, but anecdotally, I've talked to a lot of drivers who have been deactivated from at least one platform. So as Jason was saying, diversifying is really important so that if this happens, you're not just, left on the street without anything to do. What this article really highlights to me is how devastating a deactivation can be for a gig worker. all of a sudden you've got this income that you're relying on, that your whole life is based upon, and then it's gone just with the click of a button from some anonymous person at the company. And as this story highlights, there's often not much explanation. There's no due process. It's just one day the light is green and the next day the light is red. So there has to be some protection for the driver to at least appeal, to get some more information. Let's say that this driver was involved in some fraudulent activity. Let's give the company the benefit of the doubt. The driver still has a right to know what's being flagged, whether perhaps his account was hacked and it's something that can be remedied. If there was something that he was doing wrong that he didn't even know, like, sometimes there's rules that you can't be on two apps at the same time. Like these are things that can be remedied if the driver has an opportunity to explain himself or has access to the information that the company is citing. So, even if a deactivation is warranted, the driver still should have some ability to see what's going on, try to remedy his behavior. And as long as it's not a safety issue, as long as people who he's interacting with are not at risk, like let's give people an opportunity to keep their jobs. It shouldn't just be as simple as an on-off switch.
Do you feel like that's the same though with at-will employees? Like in Michigan, we're at-will employees for our W-2. They don't really have to. They can be like, "Yeah, we don't need you anymore." Does that apply the same for gig workers too, or?
So, in an at-will situation, a worker can be fired for any reason. I mean, that's the bottom line. But I do think that in most office settings, in most like quote unquote regular job situations, there's a process of talking. There's interaction. If you're not doing well at work. And in the gig economy, it's just everybody is so autonomous. There's nobody, there's not interaction with the company. There's not interaction with coworkers. So people are getting blindsided. And I think in a typical employment situation, even in an at-will situation, people have an idea that things aren't going well and can like start looking for another job. And here it really just is on off.
Yeah, it does make sense because a lot of these deactivations, the people are great drivers. I mean, their ratings are like 4.99 and they haven't had any reports and they're like, okay, bye.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you guys remember during the height of the pandemic when delivery really became the driving factor for both consumer and for workers, there was a huge uptick of this robo firing / deactivations because they were referencing maybe an ID that they got a haircut or like something really simple, like the lighting was slightly bad because they always had to check in. And they were gone and there was no way to fight it. And it was a major issue. But like Brian, like you said, and I think Jason, you might've said that, which is a positive of this. There are some places now, I think in Seattle and some other places where you are getting some sort of due process. And it seems like it also might be coming to Illinois soon. At the very least, we need that. We need at least transparency that says, okay, well, you got deactivated, but here's why. And a lot of times, the crazy thing is, because I personally talk to a lot of deactivated drivers every single day. The craziest thing to me is that every time that they ask what happened, the response is a different response. So it's not that, hey, it's fraudulent activity, but then they could call back a week later and it could say, well, you're on two apps, or your ID didn't verify, or your background check didn't verify. And it's like, well, which one is it? Because I can't solve this problem the next time if it keeps rotating.
Right.
It's a crazy issue. But moving on, because we could talk about deactivations all day.
Yeah.
Cybercabs are coming to Austin. Now, this is from City Magazine. And they reported, quote, Elon Musk revealed during his Q4 earnings call that Austin will be the first location for fully autonomous driving. He calls it a, quote, cautious first step, a place where Tesla can demonstrate in real-world conditions that its technology is safer than a human. The June service in Austin will be the first to operate entirely without human supervision, meaning there will be no safety driver behind the wheel or remote control. The system will be based on camera data, AI, and an extensive database of real-world traffic situations that Tesla has been collecting for more than 8 years. Tesla predicts it could have hundreds of driverless taxis on American roads by the end of 2025. Elon Musk even goes so far as to predict that the car will soon earn more than its owners, an idea based on a future vision of a shared economy with autonomous vehicles. So I'm gonna, Jason, I'm gonna tap you for this. What are your just gut reaction? What are your thoughts?
I mean, first off, let's just talk about the car. It's hideous looking. Okay. It's gross. And it's only a 2-seater. Did you guys know that?
Yeah, I didn't know that till this article. I thought it was at least 4.
I mean, what's the point of having just 2 people driving around? Usually it's groups of people. I'm not too afraid of this. I do definitely love technology. I think this is super important. Thankfully I am a part-time gig worker. I've done it since 2016, but like that's not my main gig, so I don't have to worry about losing my income as far as that. I don't even do a ton of rideshare anyways. I've kind of ride shared myself out, but I think it's good. I really do believe that autonomous cars are going to be safer, but it's in the in between for the next, what do you think, 20 years where we're transitioning over to that kind of stuff. And I actually am kind of excited, honestly, it'd be kind of cool to own a car and like earn money while you're sitting at home watching Netflix. Just personally, but
yeah, Brian, I know you have a lot to say on this. Before you chime in, I just want to add quickly that last time we discussed this, now maybe I'm crazy, but I'm pretty sure last time we discussed this, they said they were first going to roll out people in the car to map and be ready for the Austin streets. Am I crazy, or is that the initial?
I think your memory is correct, and that was like 2 weeks ago. Right. So it's weird how the story keeps shifting, and I think Elon Musk has a major motivation to get these cars on the road because there's a lot of competition in the autonomous vehicle space. Waymo's already putting driverless cars on the road in various cities. I think that this is really a race to put vehicles on the streets, get people in them, try to displace rideshare drivers and try to make autonomous vehicles the new rideshare. My concern is that they're doing it too fast. As Jason said, this is the future. This is what's going to happen. I think your 20-year estimate is probably about right for how long it's going to be for a full transition. But people are at risk. These are dangerous vehicles that are not fully tested that are going on our city streets. Billionaires like Elon Musk should be setting up cities and deserts where they can test these things and work out the kinks and make sure that it's not real lives in danger. I'm not anti-technology. I think that this is the future. I think that, down the road, we're going to be, there's obviously things in terms of transportation that we haven't even thought of yet that are going to, come from these autonomous vehicles. I have no problem with that. I just want to make sure that when we roll it out, it's as safe as it can possibly be and not just a race to market to try to win the market. And that's what I see here.
Yeah, there's a few articles about this. I mean, the reason he's choosing Austin, and Brian, you and I might discuss this a couple of weeks ago. It's not just that it's a tech hub, which it is. The reason that and you talk about the, kind of isolated streets, which I agree. They're using Austin because Austin has the least regulations right now for autonomous vehicles. So it doesn't really have anything to do with innovation or, hey, this is a best training ground. It literally has to do with the reverse. That, hey, we can get away with the most unsafe practices in Austin right now. So if you're starting to notice kind of an increase of Austin being popping up, that's why. So it's going to be interesting to see when these cars are on the road. And if he's saying a couple hundred, I don't know. I just, as you guys said, I don't think we're ready for that. And especially he went 2 weeks ago. It's, hey, we're going to take our time on this too. They're going to be on the streets. And by the end of this year, there's going to be hundreds of them.
Yeah, well, in regards to safety, we actually have a segment on our show called Waymo in the News, and we don't have a video every week, but it's a video of that car screwing up. Like this week, it was in a traffic circle, and it was just doing this round and round and round, and like the person was recording, and it's just like, so that you see that, and you're like, okay, that's a little scary. And then next week, we have one where a car it turns left, but it turns in the wrong direction. I mean, everyone's got cameras now so they can see it, and it just keeps going. I'm like, that is a basic turn. Why are we missing that?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've also, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
I was just gonna say, when we're talking about safety, we're not just talking about plowing into pedestrians on the road. Like what you're talking about with going around in the traffic circle over and over and over. What happens if an ambulance needed to use that traffic circle to get to somebody? All of a sudden, that traffic is stuck and somebody in need can't be helped. So there's just so many different components of this, from the most catastrophic plowing into a pedestrian to things that just stop traffic that can have real life effects.
Yeah, exactly. And there was, in regards to some of those articles or videos, Jason, I don't know if you saw, I believe, one where they were adding cones to the car
Yeah.
and people couldn't get out. Like the car just stopped and people basically couldn't get out. Like,
Yeah.
it's these simple things with the protest, whether it's a protest or a glitch. It really is, it's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
We had one where there was steam coming up from the manhole covers and it just stopped in the road and just
right.
couldn't analyze what to do. So we're not there yet.
I need to watch these. I need to watch your show more often because, man, I would love to see these Waymos in the news because we
Yeah.
discuss them, but it's great that you guys pulled the video for that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, moving on to our final story of the week, a new Colorado bill proposes that all rides should be monitored. Now, this is from CPR, and they reported, quote, drivers for companies like Uber and Lyft would be required to continuously record video and audio throughout every ride under a passenger safety bill that gets its first hearing at the Capitol on Thursday. The requirement is one of several proposed changes that's being proposed in a public hearing. Sponsors say that the hope is that the recordings will help rideshare companies verify drivers' identities while they are working and provide evidence to investigate passenger complaints. The bill does require rideshare companies to pay for and install the recording systems. It also bans drivers from offering their riders food or drink. So this is interesting, and I'm gonna again toss to you first, Jason, about this. This seems to be it's talking about monitoring drivers, but I feel like it's missing another aspect of this. But I'm curious your thoughts on the bill.
Yeah. I mean, I have a dash cam. I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's super important, and I'm even okay with the rideshare companies, providing it and requiring it, stuff like that. Where it becomes a problem for me is me having access to those recordings. I worry that if something happens, Uber's going to grab that data, and I want an attorney too, right? Like, I mean, I need protection, and maybe through the legal way you can get that, but like I want to be able to pull my data and look at it and be like, well, that didn't really quite happen. So I think if they mandated it, I think I definitely would like run my own. I wouldn't be able to see out my windshield. Basically, I would have cameras everywhere because I want a copy of that. But I think that's my biggest issue, is not having access to my own data.
Yeah, that's a good point, and something I actually didn't think about. And Brian, just your take.
Yeah, I think that is an awesome point. I didn't even think about that, that there needs to be some reciprocal access to the data. And really the passengers should have it as well. Like everybody should be able to access what these recordings are. We've talked before about the need for dash cams. I've said that a dash cam is really the second most important thing that you need in a rideshare vehicle behind insurance. And it's like 1 and 1A. The dash cam and the recordings and all that only serve to make the ride safer for everyone, whether it's an accident situation, being able to prove what happens. It also incentivizes the driver to drive safer because they know that everything's being recorded. It incentivizes both driver and passenger. If they know that their actions and words are being recorded, potential bad actors are encouraged to, act better. So there's just accountability. And I think the biggest complaint that we hear about these sorts of recording proposals is privacy. My opinion is you have zero privacy when you're in a rideshare vehicle. You have put yourself in a public situation. You should consider it the same as when you're on a city bus or train. If you are choosing to use this service, you are consenting to the fact that what you do and say may be recorded. So don't do and say things that you don't want a stranger or the public to hear. Just act like a good person, and then there's not really a problem. I think that, certainly this bill in practice, we'll see, one, if it passes, and two, how it's implemented. But I think the theory of recording audio, video in the vehicles is good. It's good for drivers, it's good for riders, and it's good for overall safety.
Yeah,
I think that.
go ahead, Jason.
I would say I think one thing that comes up for us is the one party, two party states. Like in Michigan, it's one party, and which is so odd, right? Because I'm the only one that needs to know that there's a recording, other than if there's a phone call and stuff. But I think on those two party states, I think that's where it becomes an issue. But if Uber's in charge of it, they will provide that notification to everybody on the app. So then it doesn't fall on the driver to have to be like, hey, just FYI, or there's a sticker in the window. So, I wonder what your thoughts, Brian, on that with the one two party state.
Yeah, so and that's a good point, but all that would require, as you're alluding to, is consent, which would be through the terms of service. So it would be resolved through, through the Uber application, where every time that we have to click on the button, yes, I accept, that would be part of it. And frankly, it should be shown everywhere. It should be blasted in every way that they can, through email. Every time you open the app, this ride may be recorded. I think that it's really not going to discourage anybody from using the app, and people should be excited about the fact that their companies are doing something to make it safer. Like this should be a value add, not something people are moving away from.
I think I've done like 8,000 rides. I think I've had 2 people say they didn't want to ride with me. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I mean, that's totally fine. Just get another Uber. I'm sure there's plenty out there without dash cams.
It'd be a totally amicable situation. It doesn't have to be contentious at all. No problem. Like, no problem at all. Well, I'll cancel. I'll be the one.
Yeah. I mean, I just spoke to a driver 3 days ago about a pretty terrifying experience where the passenger was just trying to assault and attack the driver while driving. And he stopped the moment that he goes, "Is that a dash cam?" And the driver's like, "Yeah." Like, first off, we're going to crash and die because he was attacking him while driving. But then he saw the dash cam, and that might have saved that driver's life. So it really is, it's super crucial. And one thing I do think that was interesting about this article is, well, 2 things. One, it's requiring the rideshare companies to pay for the dash cams, which I think it's the first time I've seen a bill like this. The second thing is they say they want to do this to help rideshare companies verify drivers' identity. But I feel like it's missing the point of what we're talking about, that often these dash cams are so much better to help drivers and verify riders, and to make sure and verify stories that, a rider says, "Oh, he attacked me. Oh, he was drunk." That, so once again, it's like, it's good for both parties, but they're focusing again on, is the driver doing something wrong? And we know it's often the riders who are causing a lot of these problems.
Yeah, the first story was about deactivations. This is going to solve a lot of those problems. It's a he said, she said situation. Let's get the footage. Boom, solved.
Yep.
I mean, I do like that they're doing identity checks. I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about it, but just like people being shady on the apps, especially for the food delivery apps, I do like anything that can verify that this is the person that they're doing. I'm okay with that. But you are right. It's mostly the passengers that are acting a fool, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, this bill would help both. I just think it's interesting how they're proposing it.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on who writes the article and who's involved. What they're everyone's got an agenda, right?
Right, of course, everyone. Well, speaking of agendas, before we head into the weekend, Jason, I will. First off, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah.
We definitely going to have you on again. Great insight. Before we head to the weekend, I'd love to just give you the chance to plug your podcast and what you do so people can tune in.
Yeah, we call ourselves an infotainment podcast, so we have a little fun and we talk about serious stories. It's always not that serious out there. So we've been podcasting since 2017. You can find us anywhere. The Gig Economy Podcast. Actually, if you Google it, that's what's going to pop. If you Google Gig Economy Podcast, we're going to be the first one that pops up. Now, I can't say we are before Harry from. I just had a brain fart. I can't.
The rideshare guy.
The rideshare guy. Oh, yes. My gosh.
Yeah.
And he's done a great job, so that we get along pretty well. But yeah, anywhere you download podcasts, the Gig Economy Podcast, that's where you go.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Brian, as always, we'll give you the last word before we head in the weekend.
Yeah, I want to thank Jason one more time. It was an awesome podcast today. Thank you for joining, and definitely everybody tune in to Jason and his team because they do a really great job. Before we head into the weekend, I always remind everybody to give Legal Rideshare a call if you find yourself in an accident or injury situation. We're the first law firm in the United States entirely dedicated to gig-related accident and injury claims. We help people collect things like the cost of medical treatment, recover lost wages, pain and suffering, any damage that you sustain. Please reach out to us immediately after a crash, as these claims do not get better with time. You can find all of our contact information on our website, legalrideshare.com.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next week.